Hills are speed work in disguise. Hi there, Coach Sage of SageRunning.com here with another training talk. Today we're going to talk about how to train for the Boston Marathon. I gotta love Boston. Such a historic race, a special, prestigious race, a race that is near and dear to my heart. I love racing Boston, had one of the best marathon performances of my life there in 2015. But it's a unique race with unique challenges. For a couple reasons. I'm going to outline those challenges because they go into your training. And if you're training for Boston this year, 2018, you're about 14-15 weeks out. Hopefully you've got some base in, you're building your mileage volume up. But at the end of this video, well, I'll do a plug for our coaching business plans. We're developing a Boston training plan. Hopefully for this year I can release in the next couple of weeks. But again, unique challenges of Boston. First thing is the weather. It can be really fickle in New England in the spring. April, it helps that the start time is earlier in the day because it could be really hot. It could be hot and humid in the 70s or 80 degrees Fahrenheit. It could also be very cold. It could be freezing cold. And you don't know what it's going to be like till maybe race morning. So you have to train in all sorts of conditions, maybe bundle up and do heat training, things like that. Be prepared for slow times because of the weather. You also have a headwind or tailwind basically the whole way because it's a unique point-to-point course. So that means it could be a lightning fast year if you have a tailwind with good weather, really fast year. Otherwise, it could be a very slow year if you have a headwind and it's really hot or something like that, or rainy or whatever, snowing. So, you know, it could be a really fast course. If it's moderate weather, good conditions, you know, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, no wind, it's a fair course. It's a fair course because it is a net downhill course, over 300 feet of drop, net downhill point to point, but the Newton Hills are significant uphills that make it challenging. It's got a lot of rolling hills, not very many flat spots in the course. The Newton Hills definitely take away kind of from that downhill advantage, so to speak. But if you run it correctly, you still run a personal best there and do really well. All right, so taking all these factors into consideration, how does this affect your training? Well, the other factor I should say is also the excitement and the competitiveness. It's a very deep race, competitive-wise. You got a lot of runners going sub 3 hours, and the excitement, the prestige of qualifying, is also very good. So, you know, you could get amped up from the college students at Wellesley, start running too fast, start off the first mile is very downhill. It's got a screaming downhill, and that can make things very hard for you. So first thing we'll talk about is the hills and relative pacing. Because the first half is very downhill, got some extended downhill, especially in the first 5K, but even the first half doesn't mean you want to go out super fast. And it also means you need to do some hill workouts and training that are very specific to a -3%, even a -5% grade at times, uphill and downhill repeats. So you'll see in our plan that we'll develop in the next couple weeks here, hopefully, transition workouts. I did this before Boston in 2015 on the NCAR hill here in Boulder, but basically 3 to 5% grade hill, extended half-mile repeats, even kilometer repeats, up, taking a recovery rest, running down. The goal of the downhill, though, isn't to push your cardiovascular system or to run super fast. It is, you know, running faster than race pace, but it's to beat up your quads, get the legs used to downhill pounding on pavement for extended periods of time, then being able to have the leg strength to transition to uphill for that same grade. Because after mile 16, after 10 kilometers, or what is that, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers into the race, you got to hit the heartbreak or the Newton Hills. From mile 16 to 20, you're gonna know exactly where you stand. If you can't climb in the Newton Hills, you're not gonna do well. So we do the transition workouts like that. Train for the hills, train for extended downhill, as well as the uphill. It's gonna make you a stronger runner overall. Then you also have to do traditional speed training. You're doing some track intervals, flat track intervals or road intervals at a very set pace, very set marathon pace, usually slightly faster than marathon race pace, right? 105, 110% of marathon goal pace. And you need to differentiate early on in your training cycle, the next month or two, you know, what's a realistic goal pace? What have you run in the past? What can you do? And realize that your fitness, you know, 12 weeks out from the race is gonna be a lot lower than when you train specifically for the next weeks, couple months after that, and are able to taper and rest up for race day. All right, so the next specific type of workout you gotta do is bread and butter workout. The key workout, probably most specific to success in a marathon, are some hard long runs. Not all long runs need to be hard. You see this in our sagerunning.com marathon training plans at all levels. The BQ qualifying plan, as well as our beginner plans. It is a factor of your weekly mileage. Assuming if you're training for Boston, this is gonna be a fairly advanced plan. Mileage will be in excess of 60 miles a week, 100 kilometers a week. Option to get up even much higher, but consistent high mileage is the key for stamina and strength, as well as doing over a 20 to even a 22 mile long run, 32K, 35 kilometer long run, and having some of those long runs be very hard. You see this, we throw in timed intervals or fartlek, 8 times 3 minutes fast at 10K pace, followed by 2 minutes easy in the second half of a long run, as well as even throwing down 5K, 10K worth of speed work or an up-tempo run, closing down a negative split long run where you're speeding up as the run progresses, very close to marathon goal pace. And if you could do some of these on a hilly course that mimics the elevation profile of Boston, you're gonna get your legs used to running up and down hills late in a long run, late in a race when they're tired. You have that fatigue built up. You're training your legs to be very strong. Mentally, you're prepared for the Newton Hills. You know, they're not, coming from mountain ultras, they're not crazy hills. But if you're having a bad day at Boston, it'll turn into a really bad day when you get to the Newton Hills, because you'll bonk harder and you'll probably bonk earlier. And I've had that happen before. So Newton Hills, Heartbreak Hill, it's maybe a third of a mile with less than a 5% grade, 3% grade, definitely hits over 5% grade, but you're not talking about crazy steep gradients here. That being said, if you just live in the flatlands, you might have to find might be on the treadmill doing some hill repeats. You're finding a bridge gradient or something to do these shorter, more intense hill repeats, but then also doing some hills at the end of long runs, continuous hard long runs in that kind of distance range, if you want to really maximize your potential at a course like Boston. All right, so you got the long runs down. You got some shorter, faster repeats down. Sometimes they're on short hills, sometimes they're kilometer repeats on a track, right? 8 to 10 by a kilometer at between 10K and half marathon PR pace with a short rest, a very short rest. You want to train that 85 to 90% max heart rate, that lactate threshold, depending on the time range you're in. You know, that could be 10 seconds a kilometer faster than marathon race pace, or could even be faster. If you're in a faster time range, say, you know, sub 240 marathon, the thresholds get a little closer together. So your lactate threshold pace is actually closer to your marathon pace. Whereas if you're 3 hours plus, there's a bigger differential usually, just on the nature of the seconds and minutes. But you're doing that, you've got some real fast stuff. You still got the track workouts, 800 meter repeats, short hills. The other bread and butter marathon types of workouts are gonna be long lactate threshold repeats. I'm talking about 3 mile repeats or 5K repeats. 3 times 5K at 10 seconds a mile faster than marathon race pace, or 6 seconds per kilometer faster than marathon goal pace. Could be hilly, Could be flat on some of them. You're getting in those hills. In our plan, it's gonna be periodized. So the hills happen a little earlier because the downhills beat up your quads. And it is an injury risk. Running high mileage, doing speed work is always an injury risk. And we wanna keep you healthy so you get to the starting line. So that's really the most important thing. But also so you could run consistently, train consistently, almost pretty much every day. And again, it's gonna be an advanced plan. It's gonna involve a lot of running 7 days a week, maybe even some doubles if you hit up in the 75, 80 mileage per week range. But yeah, just some of my tips, how to train for the Boston Marathon. Thanks so much for all your support on here, guys. Really appreciate it, especially the Patreon supporters. Thanks for following along, thumbs up. If you like these types of videos, be sure to subscribe also for future videos. We'll be doing more. Any stuff you guys want to hear about, feel free to comment. Vote up if you like these. Thanks so much, guys. Stay tuned for more sagerunning.com videos.